Hey, what's up, you guys? I'm here today with the Casio EFV 100. Now, I saw this watch, not this particular model, the 35 millimeter model on the Slender Wrists YouTube channel. I really like that channel. He focuses on a lot of watches that look good on smaller wrists. So he did review the 35 millimeter version, and I was kind of very struck by it. I liked it a lot. So I noticed there's also a 40 millimeter version, which is a little bit closer to what I would like to wear. So I went ahead and grabbed that 40 millimeter version. This watch is extremely affordable. I think it's about $60 on Amazon right now. It comes in 3 colorways. This kind of very dark gray black sunburst style, which I think is the clear winner. But there's also a white one and a blue one, which are also pretty cool. So I've had a couple weeks with this. I've enjoyed it. I can give you my thoughts. Let's run through the specifications, and then we'll talk about the pros and cons of this watch. So, like I said, this is the 40 millimeter version. So you got 40 millimeters on that case diameter. The lug to lug is 48 millimeters. So just about where I like to be. I like to be maybe closer to 46. 46, I think, is kind of the sweet spot, but 48 is going to be okay. If you have a smaller wrist, I'm 6 3/4 and it doesn't overhang. And you do have a slight curvature to the case, which helps when you're wearing it. It's quite thin. It's only 11 millimeters thick. And you might have noticed it is a quartz watch. So with those quartz modules, you can make the watches a lot thinner usually. You just have mineral glass here. And then a 20 millimeter bracelet at the top. It's 20 millimeters, tapers down to 18. And you'll notice there's brushed on the outsides, but extremely high polish on the middle link. So this watch is quite blingy as it comes on the bracelet. You have a very high polish on the bezel as well. And those hour indices catch a lot of light. It doesn't bother me, but you might want to switch this out for something to tone down the watch. Luckily, this is 20 millimeters, so you're going to have a lot of options. It does taper down, like I said, to 18. You just have a pressed metal clasp here. The clasp does get you back up to 20 millimeters, double push deployant. And Edifice is, Casio Edifice is engraved into the clasp. You only have 1 micro position. Keep that in mind. That's something I like to see on watches, is more micro positions. It's easier to get a better fit when you kind of have these half link positions you can switch to. But that's what you get on this one. So just keep that in mind. I was able to get a good fit, but sometimes it is tricky when you don't have a lot of micro positions. Just standard cotter pins, you just push those through. And I was able to I think I took about 4 links out. So if you do have larger wrists, the stock bracelet might be a little bit too small for you. And then you just have this is actually a screw down case back, because you also have a screw down crown, because this watch actually has 100 meters of water resistance. And that's partially helped by that screw down crown. So something you don't see every day on the $60 watch is a screw down crown. That's pretty cool. And 100 meters of water resistance. So you don't have to be worried about getting this one wet, and you can be sure that your crown is secure because it's screwed down. So let's come back around to the dial itself. What really struck me about this watch was that gray sunburst. Looks really cool. And then I really like the handset on this one. You have that hour hand that has that broad arrow, and then that long minute hand. And then I really like the splash of color on this pretty monochromatic watch of the orange for the water resist 100 meters and the orange on the tip of the second hand. And there's a lot going on with this dial. I'll clean this up for you a second. You can see around the edge there are those minute markings. And if I get in real close, there's like concentric circles. So there's that texture pattern. If you look right between the 12 and the 1, you can kind of see that texture goes all the way around, which is cool. Kind of adds a lot to what's going on. And then the chaptering has these large white dots at each of the 5-minute marks. These are applied indices, and they do catch the light really well. The hands are also really high quality for what you're paying in this watch. They are tapered to the left and right, so they will catch light on either side. You can see the minute hand catching light on the left there. And then you can catch it on the right. And the same is true of the hour hand. So this watch does catch light nicely. They did integrate a date. I like that they did the white window. It's just an open window in the dial, but it's about the same size as the other indices. So the balance of the dial is preserved. And then the other thing I like about this watch is, and I can't speak for all of them, but on this particular model, you can see that second hand is ticking, and it's striking the hash marks on the minute track really well. Like they aligned the second hand really well on this one, and that's something you don't always see on a Quartz watch. And I'm pretty OCD about things lining up, but this one, especially for $60, they did a great job on this one. And the module you have in here is the 5507. That's a quartz movement. It's going to be accurate to plus or minus 20 seconds a month. And then it has a 3-year battery life. And you can see Japan movement down there at the 6 o'clock. So yeah, overall, I've really been enjoying this watch. I'll go ahead and get a wrist shot and kind of talk about what I like about it. It's nice to have a quartz. I don't have a lot of quartz watches in the collection, but it is really nice to have something that's always ready to go. Like when you're in the morning, you don't necessarily want to set or wind a watch, and then you have this guy, and the date and the time is already right. So you just grab it, and you can see on my 6 3/4 inch wrists, it fits quite well. The lug to lug of 48 doesn't overhang, and it's quite comfortable, like with the curve going down into the bracelet. And then the dial of the watch, even though you don't have a chapter ring, or a bezel. Sorry, you do have a chapter ring, but you don't have a bezel here. So keep in mind, there's a lot of watch dial, which tends to make watches appear bigger. And especially if you get like the white dial version, it's going to wear bigger than this darker gray version, just because the darker watches tend to look a little bit smaller. One other thing I forgot to mention forgot to show you is you even have a signed ground here. You have a little, that Casio Edifice symbol. And a lot of people don't like that. I think it's fine. That's kind of the branding on the 12 o'clock. I think maybe if they dropped the Casio, it might have been a little cleaner. But the dial overall is pretty balanced. And you can see that gray sunburst is really attractive. Like this watch is really fun to look at throughout the day. It catches light really well. And they did a good job of that second hand going all the way out to the minute track. And I would like to see the minute hand be a little longer, but other than that, I don't have a lot to complain about. The other thing I do like about this watch is you have the counterbalances on all the hands. That's something I've recently been appreciating. You know, some watch hands, they don't have a counterbalance at all. They just kind of protrude out of the middle. And I think I like when watches actually have like a counterbalance side on each of the hands. You get a little bit more of like a layering effect on that side of the watch. So I can't really recommend this watch enough. I know I say that about a lot of watches, but I guess I'll tell you like what you're getting in this watch. I had someone at work that was asking me about watches, and they were kind of looking for like an everyday piece that, you know, probably not mechanical, just something they could rely on. And I was recommending this watch because, you know, it's going to be really reliable. It's attractive. It's especially with the darker dial. If you put this on, you know, maybe like a different kind of bracelet or a different like leather, even like a leather strap, it's kind of like, especially nowadays with people liking sports watches, you can kind of wear them with suits. You can kind of wear them in fancier or more casual settings. This is a pretty good do everything watch. Costs $60. You don't have to worry about it for 3 years because the battery. You even have good case finishing. Like you have multiple surfaces. You have the high polish to match the high polish on the bezel, and then brushing throughout the center link. You even have a slight chamfered edge there that's polished as well between the end of the lug and, you know, the side case. And you have pretty good integration of the bracelet into the case itself, and there's not a lot of play there, even though you have now this bracelet's going to jangle, but that's to be expected in, you know, this price point. But the integration of the bracelet is really good, and when you do have it on wrist, it doesn't really. I've had some of the Seiko 5 watches, even when they're on the wrist, they kind of like jangle, but this one, once you have it on the wrist, it doesn't really make any noise as you're moving about throughout the day. So yeah, I think this is, if you're looking for just like an everyday quartz grab and go, or you're not like super serious into getting expensive watches, this is kind of represents what you can get, you know, for not a lot of money. And I think this is a lot better than some of the Timex stuff that's being offered right now. They have a lot of Timex. I kind of want to do a video on their website. They've been releasing a flurry of watches, and there's a lot of really cool stuff, but I don't think the price point is there when you compare them to other brands. Like Orient especially is kind of coming out as the value leader right now, as we see Seiko kind of reposition its pricing strategies. So I want to do a video on that, but yeah, right now I think this Casio represents really, really good value for money. I really like this one. So if you want to, if that's what you're looking for, you know, everyday watch, $60. They might go up or down. I think the 35 millimeter was sold out. Yeah, and remember, you do have the 35 millimeter if you have the smaller wrist. But yeah, it's a great option. All right, you guys, I'll see you in a couple weeks.